So since George Floyd's murder, I've been thinking a lot about what race and diversity really mean for our industry for food and ag. And over the past few weeks, I've been speaking to a lot of other business leaders, especially other business leaders of color. I think it's been great to see so many businesses come out and take strong positions that condemn systemic racism, systemic violence, and hate. But one common theme that, kind of came out from a lot of my conversations is that race is still not something that we talk about openly enough. For a lot of us right now, I think there's a common feeling that we feel invisible, silenced, and sometimes even alone. One shared experience among people of color is that addressing race inequality in a business setting can often feel like it's a professional liability. Many of us, consciously or subconsciously sanitize and even subvert parts of our identity to make ourselves more attractive or less risky, in our professional lives. So I feel like we need to have a more honest dialogue about race if we really want to improve diversity. I want to share a personal story of mine to begin this conversation. When I was raising my first round of financing, I had one potential investor tell me that the company would eventually need a new CEO. This statement was not new or unique. I was young and inexperienced, and there was a good chance that if we were successful, the company could outgrow me. However, this particular time, the intent behind the statement was different. The feedback was eventually ZeaKal will leave the lab, and its success will require someone to sell to strategic partners and farmers. I was told that the face of the company would have to be someone that was more relatable and identifiable. In other words, a long way of saying not so Asian. So, in other words, they were suggesting that there would be a predestined day where I would no longer be able to grow with my company due to my race. At the time, this was a really hard thing to hear. And I kind of accepted it with a nod and a smile. Because in business, we are told that we have to subvert our egos, that we must do what is best for the company. Our goal as leadership is to promote unity and cohesion, and often talking about race can be so divisive. And when you were just starting out like I was, you don't feel like you have that luxury to take a stand. So that whole experience was very different from the racism that I had experienced before. The off-color jokes, the racial slurs. This was almost like a logical detachment. This was a passive acknowledgement that the system was inherently set up against me, that all things being equal, I was a riskier investment with more limited upside. And unfortunately, this was not a unique experience. And this was one of my first times talking about it in a group setting. And a lot of my colleagues, whether it was race, gender, or sexual orientation, we all felt like we were making silent adjustments to who we are. We would often create professional identities that were tailored to the business world that were very different than the rest of the world that we lived in. It meant that when we have 2 minutes to make an elevator pitch, not only were a lot of us thinking about how to get our message across in that 2 minutes, but we were also thinking about whether we had to overcome any biases that may have formed in the first 2 seconds. So as ZeaKal, diversity for us is much more than just a body count or a statistic. We really want diversity to be a part of our fabric, our values, and reflected in our operations and what we're trying to do with innovation. So more specifically, diversity means three things to us. It means that we have the strength to meet complex challenges head on with thoughtful solutions. As a company, our philosophy is that authenticity is strength, and we draw on a deep well of unique experiences and perspectives. We embrace every aspect of our team members, and the company's values are the collective values of our team. Diversity means representation of the communities that we are trying to feed and nourish. So food is so much more than just calories. It is the glue that holds together our cultures, our families, our communities. And as we take on the responsibility of bringing innovation to food and agriculture, our values and identities need to reflect the faces of the communities that we hope to serve. And finally, diversity means advocacy. It means advocacy for those whose voices may not be heard. None of us got to where we are on individual strength and persistence alone. At some point, someone had to advocate for us. Advocacy crosses race and gender. It's about seeing past our differences and recognizing common values that bind us. So we want all those who right now are without a voice, who may feel invisible, to know that they don't stand alone and that ZeaKal stands with them. So we would really like to begin a dialogue, a conversation among our community. And we hope to hear your stories and we hope to know how we can help.